we started, I was the only engineer. WeDevelop was me at the beginning, me working with clients. Then I figured I need more hands, right? But of course, I couldn't afford a senior full stack engineer with 10 years of experience. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And even if I could, how can I sell this full stack engineer to come work with me? Like, nobody, right? He wouldn't come. So my strategy was a little bit different, was let's find my friends and let's see if these guys want to work with me.
Okay.
And let's start with that. So what I found is that some of them wanted to work with me, so they joined the company, but most of them didn't have work experience. Some of them knew how to code, how to write, very basic code, but they didn't have work experience. What they did have, though, was a good relationship with me. I had a good relationship with them, and they were brilliant people, right? So I knew they could solve problems. I knew they could learn, and I knew they would learn. Because they were there, they were available, they were willing to do it. So instead of hiring very expensive senior people, I hired junior people, and in 6 months, those people were already senior level.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Promethean Leader. Today we have a very special guest, Abel, who is originally from Argentina, moved to Canada, and is currently running a new startup named Nuble, which is launching soon, I believe.
Yes, very soon.
So let's hear from Abel. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so thank you for having me first. I came from Argentina last year. I've been working in the IT industry for 15 years. Started with call center, so listening to people and solving problems. Then, life took me on different roles, but I always like to build things. So ended up building companies and teams.
So I believe this is your second company, right?
This is actually my third company.
Third company.
So I own two companies. I'm the CEO of two companies, and one of the founders, members of a third company, which is also a startup, but it's with the same founding team. Yeah.
So Nuble is the Canadian startup, and other two are the Argentinian companies, right?
That's right.
So they are in Argentina, and now you have moved completely over to Canada and just spearheading Nuble.
Yeah. So the other company is actually WeDevelop, which is my main business right now, or the biggest one, is actually an American company. So basically, before starting WeDevelop, I was a software engineer. So I started working with clients in the States, and I figured that I was good at building relationships. So, I started building good relationships, nurturing those relationships. And as a result of that, I got a lot of trust from those clients, those people that I used to work with. So at some point, they asked me to get more and more involved with them, and I had to hire more people. So that became WeDevelop. That became a team of people working together. And we've been doing that since 2018. Then after COVID, we transitioned to staff augmentation, which is basically looking for Latin American developers or engineers and put them to work on US-based companies. So we've been doing that for a few years now.
So I do have a lot of questions about your transition to Canada, first of all, because I believe Canadian startup ecosystem is a lot different than any other. It's even though US is our neighbor and we have Silicon Valley there, it is still Vancouver whole ecosystem is a lot different than America. So I want to know more about like what kind of like how are you feeling about this transition from Argentina to like developing company that's work with US and now being in Canada? What kind of feelings you have?
Yeah. There are many feelings. First of all, if we compare the markets, Argentina, the US, and Canada are three totally different markets. But now comparing my customer base from the States to Canada, I think the main difference is, in the States, the market is more mature. It's almost like if it was like more advanced in some points. For example, in my area of business, we do staff augmentation, right? Outsourcing. And in outsourcing, of course, you have someone working in another country with their computers, and you don't see this person. So how do you know if this person is working, right? That's a question that we answered maybe 10 years ago. But when in some conversations I have with Canadian companies, in the context of getting to work together and maybe outsourcing some of those their developers to Latin America, they ask that question. How will I know if the person is working or not? So it seems to me that this is like a signal that the market is still learning things that the state learned maybe 5-10 years ago. So that's something I feel about the Canadian market is more also careful. They don't take those many risks. But at the same time, comparing to Argentina, it's way more advanced and innovative as well.
Yeah, I do believe like Canadian market is not that much into taking risk, even in a startup scenario. Like I've heard a lot of startup founders talk about Canadian ecosystem and not very fondly that the support system for a startup to grow is not that strong.
Right.
And there are a lot more hurdles to get in. Like I see things changing now. I see a lot of supports and resources popping up for startups, but I still believe that we need to do a lot more if we want to have a thriving startup ecosystem in Vancouver or Canada in general. Then we need to be having a lot more governmental support. But right now, things looks like sometimes you feel like, government is giving a lot more grants, but then on the other hand, you see that like it's a lot more taxation as well, and then startups cannot escape that as well.
Yeah. So I think the size of Vancouver especially is great because here, of course, you don't have the size of San Francisco, right? The Silicon Valley, but you do have a good amount of unicorn companies in BC. You have a good amount of founders, and it's big, but it is not too big. So in my experience, for example, I came here a few months ago, and in this time I've met a lot of people, and the support of the community is amazing. And of course, I don't have the same experience in the US because I haven't been there for long, but I imagine that in a bigger ecosystem, in a larger ecosystem with many more founders, it may be a little more complicated to get this collaborative environment, right?
Yeah, the Canadian way of doing things, I would say, it kind of builds on its own ecosystem of like support system by founder to founder.
Yeah.
So in that sense, we have a lot of like groups. I have been to a lot of events where they have like a lot of supports and resources.
Yeah.
But I'm like more talking about government can do more to build these kind of things and actually support them, because in initial steps for any startup is a lot more difficult, like before they even secure seed round.
Yes, there is a gap. Today I heard a phrase that resonated with me a lot, which is for startups it's harder to find money when we need it, and easier to find money when we don't. So seed or pre-seed funding is very hard to get because you need traction. But on the other hand, if you had traction, you may had some cash flow coming in. So you may not need that much of investment, but in early stages you do.
Yeah.
So I do think that there is a space where we can do something better there. And of course, taxation, I lived this in Argentina. If you tax too much, you kill the industry. So yeah, I can appreciate all the discussions going on right now, and I just hope we don't.
Let's see how that turns out. Like, I do want to see growth in this startup scene here in Vancouver, because I think there's a lot of potential, like a lot of people getting into this industry. Raising money is going to be always difficult. Like, you always need attraction, and at least Vancouver or Canada, you need to show traction, you need to show some kind of cash flow, market validation, all those things. It's a lot more different than US.
Yeah.
But let's talk more about your specialty, which is team building.
Yeah.
So you have told me you have created 3 different companies. This is your 3rd company, and other 2 companies you created in Argentina. Those are both successful, and now you're pursuing a 3rd company in Canada. First of all, I do want to know, like, why you chose Canada to build this company, what Nuble is about, and how you are going about selecting team, and how do you actually build team?
Yeah. So Canada, I think, has, or at least BC, I don't know the rest of Canada yet, but I think BC has the great combination that a founder needs. And when I talk about founders, I talk about the person that most likely has a family.
Yeah.
I have my wife and my son here in Canada with me, and Canada has a great supportive environment for a family. So I think that's super important. Like, I would rather live in a country with support with families than with support for companies, right? Because at the end of the day, what is important is that you are good, you feel good, right? So I think Canada has a great balance between a good startup ecosystem, good policies overall, good economic context, and of course a lot of support for families like mine. So why we decided to bring Nuble to Canada?
Yeah.
So we've heard from South America, far away, that Canada is a place where innovation occurs. So contrary to what Canadians may think, in places like in Argentina, we think of Canada as the place where innovation happens.
Okay.
Right? So topics like AI or robotics or gaming, that resonates more with Canada than with the States, at least in our part of the world. So I wanted to be where innovation happened.
I see. Now this is very interesting, because I didn't know the perception of Canada as an innovation hub was strong in South America. Whereas here, it's more about like hospitality, friendliness, and the nature.
Yeah.
Like the nature itself. That's what Canada is known for, and that's what I heard, and I do agree with it. Like to quite like certain extent that is. Canada is still it's a very beautiful country, a lot of natural resources.
Yeah.
You literally can just drive up and to a place and you're you feel like you're totally in a different place, surrounded by mountains, trees, and beautiful trails to hike. So I love that. I love that about Canada.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place. And at the same time, if you want to build a business here, I wouldn't say it's easy, because it isn't easy to build a business, but you have the supportive pieces that you need, right? So I believe it's a great place. And of course, the immigration policies are way different than the States, for example. Especially if you are, bringing a business with impact for Canada. It's almost Canada says, please come here, and it's something that, as a founder, you really appreciate it.
Yeah, the new startup stream is also very good for bringing great innovations to Canada and build the Canadian economy. That is going good. I think that was a really good initiative by government. So tell me about Nuble. What Nuble is?
That's a good question that I'm trying to find an answer for. But the long story is that after many years in this industry, I found that we used to treat candidates as profiles, not really as people, right? And I saw this clearly when working with WeDevelop. Our business is basically help companies hire people in other places of the world. So our process is, you are looking for a full stack engineer. So I say, okay, here is Johnny, right? And you see Johnny's profile, and you say, no, I don't like Johnny, right? So I got really upset about that, because you don't know Johnny. I do. He's a great guy. He's very smart. He may not have all the credentials you are looking for, but he will do the job, and I know it, right? So with that in mind, I started growing this feeling of things are wrong, things are not right. I mean, it's not right to judge a person based out of their profile, right? It's only 2 pages of paper. Maybe now it's digital, but it's the same. It's 2, sheets of paper and just very little information. And even some recruiters say I can say if a person is good or not in 4 seconds. No, you can't, right? So with that in mind, we started researching the industry and where problems come from. So one of the things I've learned in my first work experiences is to identify problems and really understanding them in a very deep way, like understanding root problems, right? So whenever you look, whatever you look, let me rephrase that. No matter where you start looking at the problems of the hiring industry, in my analysis, everything ends up in the resume. It's like everything comes down to the resume.
Yeah. See, I agree with you on that. People put a lot more focus on the resume part. You submit resume, and now, right, like mostly companies use those automated systems to actually filter out resumes. So they are not even like reading it. They are reading like whatever the automation system give them afterwards as a best candidate. So like now there are services as well out there. They're like, oh, we will optimize your resume to best reflect the automated system, so you can get the interview, basically. Like it doesn't matter if you have the greatest abilities or like skills, like, but you go through the same automation system. Like it funnier part is that, like, if you are applying for a graphic design job and you made your resume look very graphic-y to show that you are a graphic designer, you literally will not get interviewed because system will not be able to read any graphics. It can only read black and white. So that you can't even showcase. But then again, the bigger problem, in my opinion, is with this kind of approach of 2 pages of resume decides the candidate's future and their whole personality, is that how will you know if the candidate is good for the company, culturally fit for the company, and believes in mission and vision statements, like what you're trying to achieve. You can say, like, in the interview, we are able to size up the candidate and by talking to them. But like in the 30 minutes interview, or maybe even another, I don't know if, like, I don't think anyone does more than 30 minutes of interview. Like, you can't really tell much. Like, the question that you are asking are very industry standard. They are not something out of the box that can give you description of what candidate is about. And the answer the candidate is giving is also literally what they have practiced and told that this is goes. Just like literally industry standards talking to another industry standard, and they are trying to decide if both are good for each other. So like I don't really think anyone can get what kind of personality someone holds, if they're going to be the best. It's like come on, I don't know. Like
you I mean, it's like, you know, if you're single, right, and you want to find a partner because, you know, you decide that it's time in your life to settle down and you want to find a partner, you won't ask for resumes and you won't try to fix a partner in 3 30-minute interviews. You will go through a series of dates, right, or sequences of interactions with that person to really know each other, get to know each other. And at some point in the relationship, both people decide whether they want to get together or not, right? So the hiring industry is not that different. I mean, the process should not be that different, because at the same time, I mean, the essence of it is connecting to people, or a person to a company. And a company is a group of people. So at the end of the day, you are connecting people to people, right? So can it be automated to a point where a decision is made in 30 minutes? I don't think it will ever be possible. Why? Because we need that human interaction, we need that human component, and we need to build that relationship, right? So coming back to your question, you know, what's Nubel? What we are trying to do is solve the problems that the resume has. You know, the problem is incomplete, inaccurate, naturally biased. You know, well, there are many problems of the resume, and those problems are carried on to the hiring process and to many other areas. So we are trying to solve those problems so that employers, when they want to hire someone, they have enough information on the table. So when they go to an interview, or they start the hiring process, the interview process, selection process, or whatever you want to call it, they can focus on the person and not on the paper. Right now, if you go on an interview, I've been on many interviews on both sides, and it's all about, you know, tell me about this experience. Tell me about this. You know, it's all about verifying information, filling the gaps, you know. It's all about having a complete visualization of the data that the candidate brings, instead of actually getting to know the person.
I see.
Most of the cases, at least.
Yeah. So tell me, you said like you are trying to like bridge that gap remove the obstacles from the resume so that people, recruiters can focus on the candidate.
Yeah.
But it's still like, I would say, like, how can they would in a 30-minute interview still be able to size up a candidate if they are well culturally fit or they believe in mission and vision statement? Because like, I would say anything to get a job.
Yeah. Yes. So that's my point. It's almost impossible to make a decision out of a 30-minute interview. So what you can do though is get your first feelings, understand your first feelings. When you meet the person, you get a feeling.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't like the other person or the other person doesn't like you, you will know that in the first 30 minutes. So you build incrementally a relationship, right? So what we do, for example, at WeDevelop is before the interview, we want to make sure that we have enough information to know if the person is going to be able to perform or not. So, for example, if you are looking for a full stack engineer, and that person worked, 5 years in another company as a full stack engineer, we know, not for sure, but we have a good idea that the person may be a good full stack engineer.
Yeah.
Right? So the interview is not about the full stack engineer. The interview is about Johnny, right? So the interview is about, okay, so what do you do on the weekends? Do you live with your family or do you live by yourself, right? So those are the interviews I like to do. And when you do that, you get to know the person. You give the person to ask personal questions. You enable a different conversation. So you start talking about yourself, asking questions about the other person. You start to build that relationship.
Okay, I see that. So let's get into more of how a startup founder, first-time founder, can hire their initial team from scratch. Because like now their problems are very unique. When you're hiring for the first time, you don't first of all have experience in hiring that much.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't have money to hire an HR professional to help you hire. You're looking for a very specific skill that you want to work with. You don't have that much, I'm guessing if you haven't not raised money yet or not raised a huge amount of money, and you don't have much to offer in terms of monetary gain or like perks.
Yeah.
So attracting the best talent plus making sure that that person is also believes in the company, believes in the mission they are trying to achieve, and believe in the product that they're trying to develop. So it's like this becomes a very unique and a difficult problem for them.
Yeah.
So how can they do it?
Yeah. First of all, don't try to do the same as Google does, because you are not Google. You don't have that budget or brand, right? So let me tell you the story of WeDevelop. When we started, I was the only engineer. WeDevelop was me at the beginning, me working with clients. Then I figured I need more hands, right? But of course, I couldn't afford a senior full stack engineer with 10 years of experience. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
And even if I could, how can I sell this full stack engineer to come work with me? Like, nobody, right? He wouldn't come. So my strategy was a little bit different, was let's find my friends and let's see if these guys want to work with me.
Okay.
And let's start with that. So what I found is that some of them wanted to work with me, so they joined the company, but most of them didn't have work experience. Some of them knew how to code, how to write, very basic code, but they didn't have work experience. What they did have, though, was a good relationship with me. I had a good relationship with them, and they were brilliant people, right? So I knew they could solve problems. I knew they could learn, and I knew they would learn. Because they were there, they were available, they were willing to do it. So instead of hiring, very expensive senior people, I hired junior people. And in 6 months, those people were already senior level. And most of them are still working in the company 6 years later.
So basically, you're talking about seeing the potential in the employee and try to gauge that potential, because that someone who does not, let's say in your scenario, your story that you told, that person didn't know that much about coding, but they had potential of learning, and they were learning and they were excelling in it. So they would not get hired by a huge company with their level of skill. So getting them on in your company and nurturing them and helping them grow and support, that's what helped them also achieve their goal of skill level that they were hoping for, and help you achieve your goal.
And at the same time, because you are giving them that possibility, and you are really spending time and energy teaching them whatever you know, they appreciate that, and they become part of the company. And most importantly, at least in my opinion, is that they do it again with other people. So in the first years of the company, I had to teach a lot of people how to code, how I envisioned the structure of the code. I had read clean code, a lot of books about, refactoring, and I was obsessed with the quality of code. I had to teach that to probably 10 people, and that's it. Then those 10 people taught the other 100, right? I didn't have to do it anymore, because also you install in the company that culture of, I know something, I teach it, right?
So kind of like a ripple effect. It multiplies as you go down. If you do it right once with someone, and that person will do it right with the other person, and you don't have to keep on teaching. You just create a system that keeps on giving.
And at the end of the day, finding these brilliant people is not that complicated. You only have to change the questions that you ask in the interview. Of course, if you ask about design patterns or clean code, they may not know that. Or they may, but just a theory. They haven't applied that. It takes years and years to master that art of the clean code. Instead, I think there are other set of questions you can ask. For example, I really love this question. How many ping pong balls fit in a bottle? Right? So some of them say, okay, so what kind of bottle? Is 2 liters? Is 1 liter? Okay, 2 liters. Okay, so what's the size of the ping pong balls, right? So they start asking a lot of questions and overcomplicating the thing, Googling how to, measure volume, and, a lot of hard calculations. And some of them say, well, maybe 15, 20, why? Why do you want to know, right? Or, 15, 20, do you want to be more specific? I can do that. It will take me a little bit more time. So when you ask those kind of questions, you start to understand the way that person thinks. And then, he or she will apply that to whatever they do, right? So, I think it's just a matter of changing the questions we ask in the interviews, at least when you're a founder and you don't have enough funding. Then if you had funding and you can afford a senior engineer, of course.
So, in the beginning, should the founders be focusing when they're trying to build a team? Should they be focusing more on the skill levels of the employee or the team, or they should be focusing more on, like, if this is a culture fit, if the person believes in the mission, if the person believes in the product?
So, if you are building space rockets, you can teach that in 3 months. You need the skills, right? But now talking about companies like mine, where you of course need some skill, some knowledge, right? And then you can apply that knowledge, and you can learn to do that in 3-6 months, a year, right? So if the company is like that, I believe that you should hire junior people and not senior. Why? Because you are building a company, and a company is an organization, and an organization is a team of people. So if you want to create culture, culture is not what you write on your website. Culture is the result of putting people working together and seeing how those people interact, what comes out of it.
It is very interesting because I think like you're very correct on that. I think like if first of all, if you hire a senior level person, just by luck, the senior level person agreed to your pay, that you are not going to pay them that much, which they are worth outside. And the senior level person is like, yo, yeah, I'll be willing to work with you. First of all, they have been out in the industry for too long. They already have a culture that they are most comfortable with. They already have built that kind of personality for themselves. So if you bring them on at a very early stage of your company, where you do yourself, first of all, don't know that what's your company culture is. It's like your company culture cannot be defined in one line or two, or even like a huge paragraph on your website, nor on a page. You can put it on a bulletin board, but cannot define it till you actually, as a founder, step up and implement it by showcasing that this is what you want to have as a culture. Yeah. If you want to create a culture of giving, then as a founder, you have to show to your team that you actually go out and volunteer your time. Yeah. And you appreciate other members doing the same. That's how you build a culture. Like as an example. So it's like if you get the senior person in, they would basically at the very early stage, when you do not have the definite version of your culture or like proper definition, then their outside thought might be influencing your culture and your perspective on it, first of all. And then they will have their own set of things, how they like to do it, than yours. So as you said, getting a junior level employee, I think that's really good way to do it, because you have to see if that person has the ability to be a star. And you're basically scouting a star at a very early age, and you're trying to see if someone has the quality, star quality basically. You can see by how proactive that person is, what kind of initiative they take. If they don't know the answer, do they actually go out and try to find the answer and put effort into it? Do they go extra mile? Do they, rather than complaining, try to change? Because like these kind of things are the one that define like if someone is gonna make it big or hit big in future. Like nothing can actually tells you, but like this kind of quality can at least help you see that this person will not run away from a challenge. This person will not shy away from difficulties. They will take it on. They will try their best to actually take the company forward. So if you have these kind of people coming in and working for you at a very low pay or no pay for equity, that means they'll really, really believe in you and your product. So it's like that's a very big appreciating movement for them.
I think so. Although I would say two things here. First of all, you can do that if you as a founder have the skills or have a technical co-founder that can teach these people. These people need support. It's not that you hire a junior developer and just wait. You actually have to nurture that person. You have to teach them. You have to guide them. You have to be there when they will be very anxious about an issue or something, right? So that's like a pre-requirement. And I forgot what the other thing was. So with senior people, there is something that happens that is very interesting. So after you work like 10, 15 years in an industry, you know what your capabilities are, and you know where your limits are. So if you are, for example, a senior full stack engineer, you know what kind of problems you can solve and what problems you can't. Yeah. So it's like you know that. But when you are a junior developer, it's like every problem is like impossible. It's like, oh, I don't know anything. So I can learn anything.
Yeah.
Right? So you have that effect where people grow in their professional careers, they grow in the company, knowing that there is no problem big enough that they can't learn how to solve it, or they can't get help within the company to solve it. So it's like you also build a different mindset within the organization to tackle problems.
Yeah. It reminds me of this story. Now I don't know exactly, but I know the lesson in it, so I'm just going to tell that story with the lesson and try to do a little bit of improvisation here. So it's basically a story of a great sage who is a great master, and this person wants to be their student.
Yeah.
So they approach the master to where they live, and they're like, take me in, teach me. And the master rejects that person. They do it again, they reject that person. Then they do it again, then they reject the person. And then the student does it again. So they bring the student in and offer them a cup of tea, and then start pouring the tea till the cup is completely full. And they then kept pouring till the cup starts to pour out. And then the student is like, master, the cup is already full, it's pouring out. Then they said they are like, exactly, because your cup is already too full. Right. You have to first empty the cup to learn.
Wow.
So that's basically like with the senior level, it's basically the cup is already full. With the junior person, the cup is still empty and they want it to be filled. So they're going to go out and do more. I'm not saying like senior level people are not going to do it, or like, oh, it's a stereotype, or like this is how like set in stone. We are talking about the I can't pronounce that word anymore. Okay, let's move on to the word.
Yeah, no
I don't
problems.
know. But like, yeah, it's basically like journal stuff we're talking about, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to stereotype either. But the problem with early stage founders is that we don't have enough money, right? So we can either find a good junior developer, or what we think is a senior developer or engineer, but it's not actually a very senior person, because we can't afford a senior person. So we just take what we think is a senior, but it is not. So the result is that we get people that are in their way to get to be seniors, but are not yet there. So those people generally think they know a lot, but usually they don't. Once you have probably 7 to 10 years of experience, you are like, oh my God, I know so much, right? Once you hit the 12 years of experience, you look back and say, oh my God, I thought I knew when I was at that point. Now I know that I know anything. I know nothing.
Yeah.
Right?
I think we're going to be like that every year. Like every year we are like, oh, last year we didn't know much, and like feel embarrassed about like, oh, the things we did last year. Oh, look at like I still feel embarrassed. Oh, things I did in my university that I should have focused more on my studies.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, I think like everyone is like that. Most people are like, you're always growing.
Yeah, that's true.
So one other thing, like I want to be like touched on a little bit about company culture. So we now know like how to build a team and what to focus on, but like as a founder, you also want to build a company culture. You want to stand for something. You want to have a proper mission that you're trying to achieve. So you want to install that in basically everything you do in the company. So first of all, how do you define a culture in a company?
That's a very good question. There are like formal steps to do that. Although I think that the culture is something that you build, and it's constantly changing because the culture is a consequence of people working together. Mm-hmm. So, first of all, people change all the time. Also, people leave and go, leave and come, right? Mm-hmm. So, you have an organization of people that the organization is changing, the market is changing, people are changing, so everything is changing. So the culture is changing. It changes all the time. So it is something that I don't believe that you can write and hang it on the wall, because it will forever change. So the way I think you can shape a culture, like install a culture in the company, is by action. Like the word is not action, but example, like putting the example, being the example, and setting limits and boundaries.
Okay.
Right?
See, I get that part, like evolving part and how it's always changing.
Yeah.
But one thing that is like the vision, when you're starting the company, you have a vision of like how I want my team to be, how I want my company to be, where I want to take this company, where I want to see this company, right? So having that initial or the foundational culture, I think that needs to be very clear. Even though rest of it, like all the other layer of the onion can evolve and like take different structure and different phase, but like the basic, the core value of a company needs to be strong and needs to be profound.
And they need to be true as well. So that's one of the things that I see happening many times. We write values that sound great, right? But they are not true, because in order for them to be true, they have to be in the people that work in the company. So if you have in your culture website page, we are a very communication friendly company, and you don't have those communication systems in place, or when a problem happens, you don't communicate those. It's like you are not living your culture, so it's not true what you're saying. So I agree, you have to have something to start with, and then build on top of that.
Yeah.
And that's in every hire, the person you are bringing into the company has to be a person that you have some signals that the person is gonna fit into that culture. Otherwise, a single person can bring down the whole culture of 100-person company.
Yeah, there's a saying on that too. One fish dirties the whole pond.
Yeah, and I mean, it may not be negative necessarily. It can be also a positive thing. But if you really want to build something that lasts, you have to be very careful in every hire, right? So I don't know. For example, this teaching and being humble thing that I like in the company is something that we said the first day that we were going to do. As part of that, we always hire junior people, even though some of our clients say, "Oh, this guy has only 2 years of experience." No, and we don't look that. We don't see that. We see the person, the great guy behind that resume.
Yeah.
So we installed that hiring junior thing. We have training programs. We have communication channels within the company where more senior people can train less senior people. They can talk all the time. So that's something that we believed that was a good idea for a company to have, and we nurtured over the time.
I see.
If you don't nurture it, if you don't work intentionally on that, you can only hope that, you know, the randomness of human interactions play your game, right? It's like, it's very random, it's very hard. You have to be very intentional about culture.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things. You will have to be very careful. You might struggle with it too in the beginning, but like if you get it right, or to an extent you get it right, it will pay off in the long term by manifold, because then you have right people on the team, people who will fight for your company, people who will stand up when you need them most, and like stand behind you. So like these kind of things actually really matter. Like I think some people might, as an early stage founder or a first time founder, you might not think about culture, or you might think like, oh, we can build culture later on and all that thing. That might not translate very well, because till then, whoever you are hiring or whoever you're working with, they might not fit well. Then what are you going to do? Are you going to fire the core team because now they are not like resonating with the culture you're trying to input? But then you're going to have what's this called, struggle between the team. Like you're trying to place some kind of culture, but then they do not define that. Like for example, like let's say you started and you are like, oh, my company, I don't care what people wear, it's like casual and everything, and people are just wearing whatever they want, they come to office, but now the company has grown, and now you are like, hey guys, I want you all to be professional, and I want to build a culture of professionalism in the company. You can't come in here in shorts and stuff, so please wear proper business casual if you want. And that you're gonna have resentment, you're gonna have a struggle. People are not gonna like you for that. People are like, you might think like, oh, it's a minor thing, it's a reasonable thing to ask. But to the people who invested in your company from the very early age, people who helped you build the company to where it is, you're asking them to leave their comfort, change themselves for what you are trying to input. So that's a big thing, asking someone to change themselves, basically.
Yeah. So when I talk about intentionality in building a culture, that includes hiring. If you, for example, if you want to have a company with business casual dress code, and you hire someone that doesn't like business casual, the person that just they want to wear shorts because it is what they are, it is what they like, right? If you hire that person, it's gonna go wrong at some point, right? That person may get the job, may accept the job, so just for some circumstance, but in the long term, that is not gonna play out, right?
Yeah, like same thing. Like if you just reverse it, like, oh, you're trying to build a culture where everything is so casual, so free, you can wear whatever you want, no one is gonna judge you. But then you hire someone who likes to wear business casual, who has been in this industry, and they like to tie up. And you're like, okay, yeah, they have great skill, great references, you hired them. They are not gonna like working in the office because everyone is wearing shorts and stuff, and they will like, oh, I don't want to see that. And they are not gonna be performing to the level they can, because they will be always distracted by or annoyed by other people. Then you don't have a team member, you don't have a team player.
Right.
So like minor things in the mind of an early stage founder, but it's a major thing when things starts to grow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Abel, we have had a very great conversation about a lot of things, culture, team building, and Nuble. Like before we go into the closing, I do want to know a little bit more about the Nuble. So tell me, when is it launching? Tell me what kind of thing you will be changing. I know you already mentioned those, but tell us what you will be how this will transform the hiring industry, basically.
Okay, so we are launching actually very soon. It's going to be in August. So we are, tweaking a few things in the system, but we are very close to that, to launching. And the way Nuble work is, we want to offer employers a reliable source of talent, right? And this source of talent should be reliable first, of course, and it has to be complete. It has to have a lot more information than the information that we have now.
Yeah.
So our platform is different than others because it requires candidates to spend more time building a profile, right? It's not that you are, looking for a job and you spend 2 hours, put a profile and look for jobs. And then when you look for another job, you put another profile. It's not like that. We want to build something that goes with you for your whole professional career. So you build it once and you nurture it, forever, for your whole professional experience. The result of that is that whenever an employer looks at your resume or at your profile, I don't want to call it resume anymore, they won't have 2 pages of information. They will have a lot more information. But that's not a problem with information systems that we have since the 70s, because we can show the information in a way that is very simple to understand. And, you can access different information and as deep as you want to go. Also for employers, we are building a search mechanism. So for example, for talents with the work experience, we ask them about challenges. Tell me, challenges that you faced in this work experience, and how did you solve them, right? So we have a chatbot there that prompts them different questions so that we can feed that into the system. And then we can allow the employer to write a prompt, to search for candidates based out of challenges.
I see.
For example, let's say I'm a founder, and I am transitioning from seed to Series A, and of course, at seed stage, your system has iterated many times, so your base code sucks, and you want to update that, right? So you can go into Nuble and say, I need, a Node React developer that has experience migrating systems, that have iterated a lot to, newer stacks or whatever. So you can actually find people that went through the same problems, and it's going to be amazing, because what happens now is that you post a job, you get 200 profiles, you sift through them very quickly, and you interview 5 people. But how do you know that you are not leaving out a very good candidate? You just don't. You just hope, right? So we want to change that.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be very interesting, because in a profile, a candidate profile, rather than just saying 3 points under each job title that you had, you can literally write the story of what you did, how you performed, what kind of things you achieved, and all that. Because when I'm not right now, but in past when I was searching for a job, I always find that part to be very dull, and I was I did so much, I don't want to put three lines, because 3 lines of action items, or basically the action and results. I'm 3 lines are not going to define anything. Top 3 is not going to define anything, because I was I run this free workshop for UI UX, right? And then I can say, I ran this workshop for UI UX, and we serviced, it was completely for free. I mean, service over 300 students. We helped 300 students develop the skill. Now that looks very good, but what I wanted to tell people who are reading my resume was that we help students achieve their dreams and goals, because at the end of the workshop, when we were finished with our session, completely with the program, students came up to us and told us that they found new passion in UI UX, and now they're going to pursue their degree in UI UX. Now that's something that made me feel that all the work and effort I went through to create this program was worth it, because even just one student saying that made it all worth it, right? And that's what I wanted to communicate in the resume, because that's what it matters. Not that I service 300 students. I don't care about 300 students I service. I care about that one student who found the passion.
The thing is that every employer looks for different things, right? So some of them look for skills, some of them look for challenges, some of them look for achievements. But the thing is that the only thing that changes is what you are looking for. I mean, the point of view, but you should be looking at the same data, right? The problem with the systems today is that you only see what is there. I mean, it's what you see is what you get, right? If we had bigger amount of data, you could have the same data there, not change it for every employer that wants to look at something different. You have the same information, the same data there, and then the employer can look for whatever makes sense to them and make it information.
Yeah.
And make an information.
Abel, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
And before we head off, I would like to know if you have any final advice for the founders.
Yeah, so I think as a founder, we should be focusing on building a team of people that we like to work with, because at the end of the day, you are building a company which requires a lot of effort and a lot of time, and I strongly believe that you have to enjoy that time. So you want to build a team of people that you like to work with and you like to spend time with, right? So I think, some skills can be learned. So I would strongly focus on getting the right person and not the right profile. That would be my final advice, I guess.
I think that's a good advice. Getting right people in at early stage is a very important thing. Rather than just focusing on skills, you have to focus on the culture fit. You have to focus on where you want to see the company going, and if this person you think can help you take it there, and they would stick around, because like with a startup, things get tough. It's ups and downs, so you need to have a person who is resilient.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Abel, for coming on the show, and I wish you all the best for your launch with Nuble.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me. This was
it was great. Thank you.
Thank you.